long time ago, I saw this video of Ben Shapiro where he was trying to prove that more than half of Muslims around the world are radicals. Yes, you heard me right, more than half. Which at the time when this video was recorded were about 800 million people.
Or above 800 million Muslims who are radicalized. More than half the Muslims on Earth.
The video is quite old, however, some of these arguments are extremely important to address. With that being said, today we are going to destroy his arguments with facts and logic.
Let's examine the question. Is radicalism in the Muslim world a tiny minority phenomenon? Indonesia is the world's most populous Muslim country. Almost 50% of Indonesians actually support strict Sharia law, not just in Indonesia, but in a lot of countries. So, you make that calculation, it's about 143 million people who are radicalized.
A big chunk of Ben's arguments is regarding Islamic law. His line of reasoning is the following. Believing in the Islamic government makes a person a radical. A lot of Muslims support Islamic governance. Therefore, a lot of Muslims are radicals. You can see that this makes up almost half of his made-up statistic.
Okay, Egypt, 80 million Muslims. 65% want strict Sharia law. That is another 135.4 million radicals. Bangladesh, another 82% want Sharia to be the official law of the country. Afghanistan, 24 million people. 99% actually want Sharia to be the law of the land. So, Palestinian areas, 89% support Sharia law. Nigeria, 71% favor Sharia law. Iran, 83% favor implementation of Sharia law. At Morocco, just over 3/4 support Sharia law. That's 24.6 million radical Muslims.
This logic is extremely flawed. Compared to other religious groups, Muslims don't believe in the separation of religion and state. Islam provides us with guidelines on how to live on both micro and macro levels, and that includes the judicial system too. And this is no different for people who believe in secularism and support a democratic system of governance. Because at the end of the day, whether you support theocracy or democracy, you are in favor of an ideology. Muslims believe in Islam and want an Islamic government. Ben Shapiro believes in democracy and wants a democratic government. What Ben is really doing here is that he is putting democracy as the default position and therefore classifying Islamic governance as a radical system. But Ben needs to prove his system is right in the first place. Why should we accept your idea of a government as the correct one? And taking Western ideals as default is very common in both left-wing and right-wing individuals. In these cases, we should not let them pretend to hold a superior ideology. They must prove their stances as much as we need to prove ours.
Bangladesh, and 2/3 said honor killings of women can sometimes be justified. Iraq, 78% say honor killings of women can sometimes be justified. Afghanistan, 24 million people. A huge majority, 76%, support at least occasionally, or just once in a while, honor killings of women. Turkey has 74.7 million Muslims. 32% said honor killings of women could actually be justified sometimes.
This part amused me quite a lot. Ben is trying to paint a picture where these Muslim extremists want women specifically to be killed. However, if you look at the real data, you'll see that nearly all Muslim countries support honor killings for both genders. Some cases show the percentage being higher for women and some for men. So the way that Ben is illustrating this data is very misleading. Not only this, according to Pew itself, support for honor killing is by and large not linked to religiosity. And it is hilarious to see this happen, especially when American conservatives like Ben accuse liberals of being emotionally manipulative. Ben is doing exactly what the left does all the time. Another quite strange point that Ben makes is about 9/11.
Indonesia is the world's most populous Muslim country, and 70% blamed the United States, Israel, or somebody else for 9/11. So,
this is just bizarre. How exactly does believing that 9/11 was done by the USA or Israel make a person radical? If this was to be the case, using Ben's logic, 52% of Americans are radicals as well. Again, this is so ironic because it is commonly known that conservatives are much bigger supporters of conspiracy theories than leftists. How one even comes to this conclusion is beyond me.
France, 4.7 million Muslims live there. A 2007 poll showed 35% of French Muslims said suicide bombings could sometimes be justified. Bangladesh, just over 1/4 said suicide bombings or targeting of civilians was sometimes justified.
So I looked up the real data to see what he was talking about, and here are the statistics. Most Muslims across the globe are against suicide bombings, ISIS and Hezbollah. Ben is cherry picking the data to prove his stance, which is at least dishonest and at most hypocritical. Now, someone might look at this and claim that there are people in the Muslim world who support suicide bombings. What about them? Well, I have an answer for you. There was a book published in 2008 that included research where Gallup conducted tens of thousands of interviews with residents of more than 35 nations that are predominantly Muslim or have significant Muslim populations. The conclusion was as follows. Out of all Muslims, 93% oppose terrorism, and the other 7% who support it do so for political reasons, not religious ones. In contrast, 6% of Americans think that terrorist attacks are justified.
Palestinian areas, right? We're sending literally hundreds of millions of dollars to the Palestinian areas. We are, the American taxpayers.
Here, Ben hypocritically notes that the US government sends money to Palestine, when in fact the number one supporter of Israel in this day and age has been the United States. This guy has the audacity to complain about the US helping Palestine, when in reality the United States has been sending billions, literally billions of dollars to Israel, and he doesn't even flinch.
How about here in the United States? 13% said violence against civilians can be justified. In other words, the myth of the tiny radical Muslim minority is just that. It's a myth. And, unfortunately, it's a myth that's going to get a lot of civilized people killed.
As a final nail in the coffin, I wanted to talk about this last sentence. Of course, with the dishonesty that Ben radiates, it is expected to hear these types of statements. But let's again destroy him with facts and logic. Do Muslims really kill civilized people? Robert Pape, a professor of political science at the University of Chicago specializing in international security affairs, published a book called Dying to Win. In this book, Pape went over all suicide bombings from 1980 up until 2003, and he concluded that there's little connection between suicide bombings and Islam, and the reason behind these attacks being political power. He adds, in fact, the leading instigators of suicide attacks are the Tamil Tigers, a Marxist-Leninist group who are adamantly opposed to religion. It seems that people the likes of Ben Shapiro are exactly what they claim to oppose. They strawman the truth, stretching it to the extent where they then can attack the misconstrued reality. And to be honest, it is not even surprising. People who are the likes of him need to be challenged regarding what they say. We should not let them go free of charge from their public misinformation. Because remember, Ben, facts don't care about your feelings.